It's time to build wheels. What I've actually got here is the 1.9-inch SLW Complete Discount Bundler Pack from Locked Up RC. If you go on to Locked Up RC's website, they make it real easy to go through and build yourself a nice set of custom wheels. So rather than buying an off-the-shelf wheel that's going to make your rig look like everybody else on the trail that has the same wheels, you can get something completely unique. The way it works is you go through and you get to choose each and every component of your wheel. So in my case, I chose what Locked Up calls the rock cutter in black for my base wheel, the orb in black also, beadlock rings. I went with zinc scale hardware for the beadlock rings, and I also have scale hardware for the lug nuts, but I've gone with an SSD scale hardware that I've been using on my other trucks. It works really well. And I'm going to go with stainless on these. You can get them in black. I've got them in both, but I think I'm going to try the stainless first and see how that looks. For the hubs, I chose not to buy them with the bundler pack. You can get them with or without, but I have these SSD scale brake rotors, so that's what I'm going to be going with. I'm going to be mounting these to a set of Proline BF Goodrich Mud Terrain TA KM3s in the 4.75 inch size, so it's going to be a good class 2 tire. And these are in the Predator compound, which is Proline Super Soft compound. For foams, I've gone with Crawler Innovations Little Nova 2-stage foams. They have a comp cut closed cell inner, and these particular ones, which are going to be on the front of the rig, have a soft foam outer. The rears are going to be exactly the same, but they have a medium outer. You can get them in soft, firm, or medium. I'm going to start there and see how it works and tune it if I need to do something different. Also from Locked Up RC, I've gone ahead and bought this 2mm driver for the beadlock hardware. One thing I've noticed about the Locked Up RC beadlocks is that the holes where the hardware goes are fairly small, and these, as far as I know, are the only socket tips that will fit inside those beadlocks. I actually have tried before with an SSD socket that I've used on all my SSD wheels like you see on these trucks here in the background, and they will not fit. So if you do purchase these wheels, I recommend going ahead and getting the tool from Locked Up RC. Let's go ahead and tear stuff open and see what we got. And I might mention that I am in no way endorsed by Locked Up RC. I'm not endorsed by anybody. Why would anybody endorse me? So I bought these wheels with my own money, and you're going to get my honest opinion of them. Alright, so here's our wheels, and in the back of this one, we've got a little pack of black hardware. Okay, so what this is going to be the hardware that attaches the rear beadlock ring that holds the tire on. Let's have a look at our beadlock rings. One thing I can tell you right away is they use a real high quality anodizing on these beadlock rings and on these wheels. I really like the way this looks. I'm going to start by going ahead and pulling these back beadlock rings off. They've just got it held on with this one screw for the packaging. Alright, so now we've got our bare wheel. Now I'm going to go ahead and install it in the tire. It's kind of unique the way that Locked Up RC makes these. If you've ever mounted a set of Proline tires on something like these SSD wheels back here, they can be a bit of a challenge. They're super tight, and you definitely have to fight to get them even under the beadlock. The way these are made, they've got this little groove right here, and the bead of the tire just fits right down in that groove. Super nice. Same thing on the back, no fighting whatsoever. On the back of the wheels, you've only got 6 screws that hold this beadlock ring on. This is really nice. If you've ever bought any Amazon beadlock wheels, a lot of times what you'll end up with is about 30 different screws that you have to tighten to put the wheels together on the front and the back, and it's a complete pain in the ass. These, you just install these 6 screws, and then we'll move on to the front. Get it lined up there. And again, already I can see these things fit beautifully. There is no drama here whatsoever. These have definitely got to be the easiest set of wheels that I've ever assembled. I've built up quite a few, and generally you got to fight and argue to get the bead locks to hold the tires straight. These don't seem to have that issue. That little groove that they machine in there is really nice. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the rest of these screws in. We'll move on to the front. Now on the front of the wheels I've done something really cool. Rather than making you put, 30, however many, I don't know how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On the front of these wheels they've done something really cool. Instead of having to go around and install all 25 screws just to hold the beadlock ring on and hold the tire to the wheel, only 6 of these holes are actually threaded. The rest, basically the screws screw in to the beadlock ring, but they don't actually screw into the wheel. So they're not holding the tire to the wheel, they're strictly for looks. If you notice on my beadlock ring, it actually has 6 slots on it. I'm going to go ahead and index those slots to my active screws. So in the future, if I need to take it apart, it's real obvious which screws I need to take out. So there's a threaded one right there. I'm going to line that up. And again, these things fit so nice. I've never had a beadlock that fit that well. That's just crazy. I'm going to go ahead and get my driver here. And I'm going to install the first screw, and I'm not going to crank these down. I'm going to go ahead and install all 6, and then I'll come back and tighten them up. So now that I've got my 6 functional screws in the rim, I'm just going to go through and just make sure they're all even. You don't need to get crazy with this. Don't put Gorilla Strength on them or anything. Your wrist stripping these out, they're just going into aluminum, and they're not really going anywhere. So I'm just going to go ahead and torque those down a little bit. And that's really all it takes for that to be a complete functional wheel. Now I just need to go back and put all the screws in between that are just going to be for looks. One thing I did see on Locked Up RC's website, if you look at the instructions, one thing that they say is to not use Loctite in any circumstances. I'm going to do the reasonable thing and completely ignore that advice. The reason for that is that in my experience, I have lost a whole lot of beadlock screws. Now, I definitely don't want to put Loctite on the active screws, because then you'll have a hell of a time getting them out. You'll probably strip them. You'll be trying to get broken screws off, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is put just a dab of Loctite on the screws that are going into the holes that are just for looks. Those screws strictly screw into the beadlock ring itself and not into the wheel. So there's no way that it's going to get stuck to the wheel or anything like that, and it's going to keep them from falling out on the trail. Now again, Locked Up RC says not to do that. So if you do that, do it at your own risk, but I'm going to. So I'm just going to put a little dab of blue Loctite on each one of these screws, and I'm going to go around and install all of the, I don't know what you call these, fake screws, I guess. Now that I've got all the beadlock bolts in, you can start to see how it's coming together. Now we can go ahead and install our scale brake rotors. Now I'm going to use SSD scale lug nuts. And the socket that I'm using is also from SSD. So here's our completed wheels, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. These things are going to look absolutely awesome on this truck. I've got the SSD scale brake rotors in there, the SSD scale lug nuts. They're just going to look really nice. I do think I get a scale point for the brake rotors, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Either way, it's going to look really cool. My initial impression of this wheel is that you really get what you pay for. They're definitely not the cheapest wheels out there by any means. However, the machining on them is definitely top notch. The finish seems very durable, although I think they're going to look even better when I get them out on the trail and beat them up a little bit and make them look trail worn and realistic. But these definitely went together easier than any wheel that I have ever built. So I'm going to say if nothing else, that is the #1 reason for purchasing these wheels from Locked Up RC. The way these things are designed, where they have that groove in the main wheel barrel that the bead of the tire sits down in, there's really no way for the tire to slip around as you're trying to assemble the wheel. Unlike some of the other wheel and tire combinations that I've put together in the past, it can be kind of a pain in the ass. These went together as smooth as I could possibly imagine any wheel going together. So that alone for me is worth the price of admission. One of the things I was thinking about when I picked out these wheels was weight. As I said in the first episode, one of my goals for this truck is to make it as light as reasonably possible. So my thinking was that by going with the aluminum wheel, I might be able to shave a couple grams off. However, to my surprise, that's not really the case. So unfortunately, I gained absolutely no weight advantage by going with the aluminum wheel. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. They still look great. They're going to perform awesome, I'm sure. These things are so nice, so nicely built. I don't see any way that I could possibly roll a bead off of one of these, which is an issue that I have had in the past with other wheels. I don't think that's going to be a problem with these. So that being said, this isn't really a full review because I haven't taken them out and driven on them yet, but my initial impression is good. I don't think I'm going to have any issues, and these things are going to work really great on this project. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Once again, I thank you for stopping by, and please stay tuned for the next episode where I'm going to be building the Crawlmaster Mini ESC V2 by Holmes Hobbies.